Good morning. So today I'll be speaking about dual antiplatelet therapy in patients with high risk ACS patients. So what is dual antiplatelet therapy? Dual antiplatelet therapy is a combination of aspirin, low dose, along with a P2Y12 inhibitor. This P2Y12 inhibitor, there are three: ticagrelor, prasugrel, and clopidogrel. What is the aim is to prevent myocardial infarction and stroke and stent thrombosis in patients who are stented. So DOPT is recommended in all patients with ACS and all patients who undergo PCI and also some subsets of patients with stable disease. Optimal DFPT duration after stent implantation is a challenge that every physician and a cardiologist treating the patient has to go through every day. And there are various evidence from the clinical trials that suggest that there is a trade-off between ischemic risk and bleeding risk. Those patients in whom you prolong DAPT in order to reduce ischemic risk will have higher bleeding, and those patients who have a higher bleeding risk where you have to trade off with the ischemic event. So it's always very important to strike a balance. So if you look at stenting, let us look at stenting. This is the lower slide is the BX velocity, that is the bare metal stent. And you can see diagram E, that square, black square marks the stent struts, and then it's properly endothelialized. You can see well endothelialized. And the upper one is the first generation drug-eluting stent called Cypher, where you can see that the struts are exposed. They are not properly endothelialized. And therefore, DES takes longer to heal, and some DES may not heal at all. And therefore, whenever they don't heal, there is always fibrin around the strut that can lead to stent thrombosis. Now, what is the problem with first generation DES was that this is a patient with in-stent stenosis and 3 lesions in the coronary artery, which were stented with 3 stents. You can see the blue circles. These were first generation stents. The first generation stents have very high incidence of stent thrombosis. And also not only stent thrombosis immediate, but also very late stent thrombosis occurring more than 1 year after stent was implanted. And then now, of course, we are having second generation stents, DES. This itself reduces the chances of stent thrombosis. And aggressive antiplatelet, which is needed with first generation, probably is needed for some time in second generation also, but not as much. Very late stent thrombosis is almost completely eliminated with second generation stents. What is the difference between first generation stent and second generation stent? Second generation stent strut thickness is smaller, is less. Then they don't have inflammatory polymer. And the drug has changed from sirolimus, which is more effective anti-proliferative drug, to everolimus. And these 3 changes made the second generation DES less thrombogenic. So the stent thrombosis is almost reduced by half, and very late stent thrombosis is almost always eliminated with this second gen. So first step towards reducing stent thrombosis is using second generation DES. Even second generation DES takes longer to heal, and therefore you need antiplatelet therapy. You cannot replace antiplatelet therapy. So if you give, what is the dual? First you give aspirin. Aspirin acts on thromboxane A2 and inhibits the platelets. And if you give clopidogrel, it is inactive. To convert into an active metabolite, it requires 2-step conversion before it becomes active, then attaches to P2Y12 receptor, which causes deactivation of the platelets. Prasugrel requires 1-step activation before it becomes an active metabolite and attaching to P2Y12. Ticagrelor is directly active, doesn't require any conversion, directly attaches. Therefore, most rapidly acting antiplatelet drug is ticagrelor, and that causes platelet deactivation. So if you look at evolving evidences for DAPT, the first trial was in 2001. It is PCI Cure trial, where they gave clopidogrel plus aspirin and compared it with aspirin and showed that clopidogrel plus aspirin was superior in reducing events after stenting. Then came Trilton-TIMI trial, which is in 2007, where they used prasugrel and it showed that prasugrel is far superior to clopidogrel in reducing coronary events and also reducing stent thrombosis. Then came a plateau trial in 2009 in which ticagrelor was used along with aspirin and showed that ticagrelor is superior to clopidogrel in preventing events, and in plateau trial they also showed mortality benefit significantly. And to top it all, plateau trial did not show increased bleeding risk when compared to clopidogrel, whereas in Triniton-TIMI trial, prasugrel was definitely more effective than clopidogrel, but the bleeding risk was also increased. And for prasugrel, you cannot use in patients who have prior CVA or patients having prior TIA. Therefore, these are some indications which are limited in prasugrel, which are not there for ticagrelor. Then Triology ACS trial is medical management of unstable angina, and they found that there is not much difference between prasugrel and clopidogrel as far as medical therapy goes. So if you look at dual antiplatelet therapy, aspirin plus P2Y12, if you give long DAPT duration of DAPT, it reduces ischemic risk, but at the expense of increase in the bleeding risk. So bleeding is the most important factor that has to be seen in all patients in whom you are giving DAPT, and when you want to decide how long DAPT you want to give. So for example, those patients with high bleeding risk, on the right side of your slide, you can see those patients who have prior bleeding, those patients who are on oral anticoagulant therapy, females, advanced age, CKD patients, diabetic patients, anemic patients, and patients on chronic steroid and NSAID therapy are high bleeding risk patients. In these patients, you should give short duration DAPT, should not give prolonged DAPT duration because they are very high risk of bleeding. Does bleeding increase mortality? Let us see. And if you look at the high ischemic risk, there are so many overlaps between high ischemic risk and high bleeding risk. So high ischemic risk are advanced age, ACS at presentation, multiple prior MIs, extensive CAD, triple vessel disease, or multiple stents, diabetes mellitus, and CKD. So you can see that advanced age, diabetes, CKD figure in both the high bleeding risk and high ischemic risk. Therefore, you have to, the physician has to strike a balance in order to decide how much duration DAPT should give. In all patients with high ischemic risk, it is better to give a prolonged DAPT therapy, maybe extended to 24 or 30 months. Now you have to balance. So you have to get a sweet spot, especially in diabetes and CKD patients, where the bleeding risk is also high and the ischemic risk is also high. And that balancing act can be done by looking at these papers. Now, does increased bleeding lead to increased mortality? It was clearly shown in the ACUITY trial that if those patients who have increased bleeding, major bleeding, have higher mortality. You can see the blue line with major bleeding, in which major bleeding occurred, mortality was 7.3%, whereas 1.2% in patients who had no major bleeds. Therefore, excess bleeding kills, and therefore it is very important to avoid bleeding events in order to prevent mortality. Now, bleeding can be predicted. There are many bleeding scores. We will go through one of them in the follow-up. These bleeding scores have shown that as the bleeding score increases, the bleeding risk increases. Therefore, bleeding can be predicted. So you should look for bleeding scores before deciding the duration of DAPT. Then the Danish National Registry, it was shown clearly that majority of the bleeding risk is constant. It doesn't change from the time you started DAPT till the end of a year or 2 years. The bleeding risk is constant, whereas ischemic risk is not constant. Ischemic risk reduces with time. So here in this Danish registry, it is shown that you see the second aspirin monotherapy, clopidogrel monotherapy, and aspirin plus clopidogrel. You can see here aspirin plus clopidogrel has higher bleeding risk than either monotherapy with clopidogrel or monotherapy with aspirin. And now we are using more powerful P2Y12, more powerful than clopidogrel, and therefore the bleeding risk will be higher in these patients. Therefore, the principles of management are, if the ischemic risk is highest immediately after PCI and decreases with time. Bleeding risk is generally constant, and there is a trade-off between dynamic trade between ischemic risk and bleeding risk, and that the physician has to decide in this situation. Let us look at the prasugrel trial. Triniton TIMI 38 trial, which was done in 2007, showed clearly that when they use prasugrel and compared it to clopidogrel of 300 milligram loading dose, the primary endpoint was 12.1 in clopidogrel group, 9.9 in prasugrel group. Similarly, MI risk was 9.5 versus 7.3. Stent thrombosis reduced from 2.4 to 1.1, but you can see that major bleeds increased 2.4 to 1.8. So significant increase in bleeding risk with Triniton TIMI 18, but it is an excellent drug to prevent ischemic risk. Now, what are the Plateau trial? The Plateau trial is with ticagrelor. Here they have shown that when ticagrelor was used along with clopidogrel, they looked at primary event. What is the primary event? Death, non-fatal MI, non-fatal stroke, and major bleed. All these things were reduced with ticagrelor, reduced by almost 8%. So 17% event rate in clopidogrel, 15.7% in ticagrelor. And not only that, they also showed that the bleeding doesn't increase much. So the bleeding risk is not higher in ticagrelor when compared to clopidogrel, almost similar, but it reduces the ischemic complications significantly. And if you look at the various subgroups of patients in the Plateau trial, high-risk ACS group, like for example, in patients with multivessel disease, multivessel stenting, the cardiac death is reduced by 28%. In patients with prior MI, stroke, death, MI and stroke reduced by 16%. In diabetes, reduced by 12%. In CKD, reduced by 23%. And in elderly, reduced by 11%. Therefore, this is an excellent drug that can be used. Now, how long should you use this DAPT? Once you start DAPT, there is a trade-off, like I said, between bleeding and risk. There is one trial called DAPT trial. This is a DAPT score they have given, in which they looked at the scoring they have given. If the score is less than 2, it means that you can use standard 12-month DAPT. If the score is more than 2, then they have given a prolonged 30-month DAPT. What is the score? The score is, if age is above 75, it is -2, 65 to 75 -1, less than 65, 0, prior MI 1, CHF 2, current smoker 1, stent diameter less than 3, 1, saphenous vein graft PCI 2, diabetes 1, MI at presentation 1, paclitaxel eluting stent 1. So here you can see as the score increases, the ischemic risk increases. Therefore, if a DAPT score is more than 2, then you give prolonged DAPT because ischemic risk being higher. Therefore, in these patients, they have given 30-month DAPT. Whereas when the score is less than 2, then there is no increase in the ischemic risk. More likely, they have more higher bleeding risk. And therefore, in these patients, they have given standard DAPT of 12 months. So how to predict bleeding? That is the main problem that we face when we are selecting the duration of DAPT. So for predicting bleeding, there is a called precise DAPT score. This is a very simple score. It's a nomogram actually. If you have the nomogram, you can predict this bleeding risk. You can see here in the blue is the major TIMI bleeds and then major all bleeds, and in the red is the major bleeds. As the bleeding score increases, the number increases, there is increase in the bleeding. How to look at these scores? This is the nomogram, which is shown on the right, the precise DAPT nomogram. Here, what do they see? They look at hemoglobin. Hemoglobin of more than 14 is 0. Then after that, as the hemoglobin keeps reducing, the risk keeps on increasing. WBC count less than 5,000 or 5,000 is 0. But as the WBC count increases, the risk of bleeding increases. Age, 50 is 0. But as the age increases above 50, the risk of bleeding increases or bleeding score increases. Creatinine clearance, they have given 100 creatinine clearance as 0. But as the eGFR keeps falling, the bleeding risk increases. and also history of prior bleeding, yes or no. And this is the score given. So by that, you can look at the scoring. Here is a patient who is a 78-year-old patient who is undergoing PTCA. His hemoglobin is around 10.2 and his creatinine clearance is 58. And he doesn't give any past history of bleeding. And here you can see the bleeding scores with hemoglobin was 6 points, with WBC count was 3 points, with age above 75 was 23 points, and creatinine clearance 13. Therefore, this patient precise DAPT score of 31 indicates high risk of bleeding. So you see the precise DAPT score, less than 17 score, 17 or less score is low and very low risk. And therefore, in this low and very low risk, if you want, you can give beyond 12 months DAPT, 24 months or 30 months, which you can decide. But those people with a bleeding score more than 18 to 24 is moderate risk, and more than 25 is high risk. You should give short DAPT course of 3 to 6 months. Ideally 6 months, 3 months is too short for an ACS. Here is the trial which was done. It is called Smart Date trial. Here they gave DAPT in an ACS patients for 6 months. After that, they dropped P2Y12 and continued patient only on aspirin. And in next 6 months, next 1 year, you can see increase events, increase ischemic events. Therefore, it's not a good idea to drop P2Y12 in a patient with an ACS at 6 months. Then the Stop DAPT trial came. In this trial, what they did is they gave 1 month, only 1 month of dual antiplatelet therapy, and followed by, after 1 month, they dropped aspirin. They continued P2Y12. So in this case, they continued clopidogrel, and they found less ischemic events. They found less ischemic events with continuing P2Y12. We will come to that as to what is the medicine that should be dropped. Now, more and more evidence is coming that if you want to reduce bleeding risk in a patient with dual antiplatelet therapy, the first drug you should drop is aspirin, and P2Y12 should be continued. That will prevent ischemic events and also reduce bleeding risk. So this is a Pegasus trial in which they gave ticagrelor 60 and 90 mg and compared it with only aspirin in high-risk patients. That is, those patients who had spontaneous MI 1 to 3 years back, who were above 50 years of age, and who had other risk factors like age above 65, diabetes, or spontaneous second MI, multivessel disease, or renal failure. All these patients, they had given, compared it with aspirin, and found that ticagrelor 60 mg BD is as good as 90 mg BD. After 1 year, if it is given and it reduced the events, it reduced definitely ischemic events, but bleeding events were high in this trial. Therefore, major bleed was also a little high. Therefore, you should be very careful in choosing patients for prolonged ticagrelor therapy. But this trial showed clearly, consistently ischemic events down by 18% in the first year, 10% in the second year, and 23% in the third year. Now, there are emerging trials, which I told you, which look at continuing P2Y12 and dropping aspirin. So one such trial is Twilight trial, and they looked at a subgroup of patients with diabetes and those patients with complex PCI also. So in this trial, what they did is the patients were divided into two groups. First 3 months, they were given ticagrelor plus aspirin. After 3 months, they divided them into two groups. In one group, only ticagrelor with placebo was given. In the other group, ticagrelor with aspirin was given, and were followed for 12 months. And then observation period of 3 months. And they did the trial. A large trial, high-risk PCI patients, more than 7,119 patients in this trial. And what they found, the bleeding risk dropped by dropping aspirin. Bleeding risk dropped from 7.1 to 4%. So major bleeds came down significantly in this trial after stopping aspirin after 3 months. And ticagrelor plus aspirin had more bleeding events. Now, when you are doing that, are you increasing the ischemic events? No. You see here on the right side that the ischemic events were same between ticagrelor plus placebo and ticagrelor plus aspirin, 3.9% in both the groups. So therefore, if you drop aspirin after 3 months, you are reducing bleeding and you are not increasing ischemic events. So they looked. So that was the conclusion, was substantially less bleeding in ticagrelor plus aspirin on only monotherapy, ticagrelor monotherapy, without increasing the ischemic risk. Then they looked at diabetic. In diabetic, there were about 2,620 patients, and they were all high-risk patients because clinical criteria were age above 65, female patients, troponin positive ACS, associated peripheral vascular disease. All were diabetic on treatment or insulin and CKD. And angiographic criteria were multivessel disease, target lesion requiring a total stent length of more than 30 millimeters, thrombus in the target lesion, bifurcation lesion requiring more than 2 stents, left main stenosis or proximal LAD stenosis, and calcified lesions requiring rotablator. Only they excluded patients with STEMI, salvage PCI, or patients on oral anticoagulation and stroke. And what happened in them? You can see the bleeding, death, MI, and stroke reduced to 5.4 from 8.7. So even in these patients, when you give just ticagrelor monotherapy after 3 months of DAPT, it reduced risk to the patient without increasing the ischemic events. So this is a good trial that showed that even in high-risk patients, ticagrelor monotherapy is as safe as dual antiplatelet therapy as far as ischemic risk concerned, and bleeding risk is much lower. So that was the conclusion. And then in the complex group, there were about 2,620 patients in the complex group, and they again the same ticagrelor monotherapy, ticagrelor plus placebo versus ticagrelor plus aspirin. And what is the complex case? They are patients with 3 vessels treated, more than 3 stents treated, total stent length more than 60 millimeter, bifurcation lesion requiring 2 stents, use of rotablator, left main vessel target, venous grafts or arterial bypass grafts, and CTOs. So all these were very high-risk patients that were taken in the complex PCI group. You can see here a slightly complex slide, but I will explain to you. The first solid line is ticagrelor plus aspirin complex PCI, and green line is ticagrelor plus aspirin non-complex PCI. So even with that, you can see that complex PCI has slightly higher mortality, slightly higher bleeding than non-complex PCI. And the dotted line is in both in patients with ticagrelor plus placebo, both in complex as well as in non-complex patients. Therefore, the bleeding is much, much less, and the ischemic events are reduced. Ischemic events are not the same. So ischemic events are the same between complex PCI with ticagrelor plus aspirin or ticagrelor plus placebo. And therefore, it clearly shows that if you drop aspirin and continue ticagrelor after 3 months of DAPT, then you are reducing bleeding risk and not increasing ischemic risk. Therefore, now the conclusion after the Twilight trial is that shorter DAPT duration is likely to gain impetus, and contemporary stents, optimal implantation techniques very important, and aggressive risk factor reduction. These findings support a bleeding avoidance strategy and de-escalation for selective patients based on clinical and ischemic profile. So the future in the time to come is to peel back anti-thrombotic regime and cut the cord for traditional DAPT. Therefore, in future, bleeding risk is extremely important because the stents have progressed, the implantation technique has progressed, and therefore there is less need for more aggressive antiplatelet therapy for a longer duration, and therefore you can reduce the risk of stent thrombosis, and the bleeding event avoidance takes the precedence. Therefore, in summary, short duration DAPT for patients with lower ischemic risk and high bleeding risk. Here you should know, drop aspirin sooner. Longer DAPT in patients with higher ischemic risk, and then the duration of DAPT is similar between NSTEMI and STEMI. Thank you. If there are any questions, please ask me now, though that I can be.
Good afternoon, doctor.
Good afternoon, yeah.
Yeah, so the first question comes from Dr. Alukur Chandrasekhar. So
Yeah.
his question is as follows: is there any relationship between ACS and genetic factors?
Any relationship between ACS and genetic factors? No,
Yes.
genetic factor is important only for clopidogrel because it requires two-step conversion. Therefore, it is not very important. ACS, of course, requires their to be treated with dual antiplatelet therapy. Is there a genetic link to ACS? Yes, there are patients who are more prone for ACS, and genetic studies are being done. One such is there is a gene which has been selected, has been shown to be an acute MI gene previously, but now has been shown to increase the risk of coronary artery disease.
All right. The second question is it possible to do elective PCI but not STEMI?
What is the question?
Is it possible to do elective PCI but not in STEMI? So
Stable
I
coronary artery disease. His question is, in stable coronary artery disease, do you want to go do elective PCI?
yeah
Yes,
yeah
there are groups. All stable CAD is not the same, and stable CAD has many subgroups, and there are certain subgroups of patients in stable CAD which benefit from stenting.
All right, thank you, sir. And the next question is, what is the role of cangrelor in high risk ACS patients?
Cangrelor is the only intravenously available antiplatelet agent. It can be used in the cath lab if the patient is not already given any antiplatelet agent. But after the availability of ticagrelor, within half an hour, within half an hour, you can get the blood levels of ticagrelor and platelet inhibition. The need for cangrelor is not that much, but you can still use it if you want to use in the cath lab.
All right. The next question is, which is the preferred P2 Y12 inhibitor you use in your high risk ACS patients?
My preference is ticagrelor.
And what would be the reason to prefer ticagrelor? That also one doctor was asking.
The bleeding risk is not that high. That is the only reason. Bleeding risk is not, but prasugrel is an excellent antiplatelet if you want to use. Now, recently there is one trial which is compared prasugrel to ticagrelor and found prasugrel superior to ticagrelor in reducing events. That is true, but bleeding risk is slightly higher with prasugrel, and especially you are worried if some patient has a lacunar infarct or a past history of DIA or a CVA, then you cannot use prasugrel.
Okay. Thank you, doctor. The next question is, what is the ideal duration of DAPT in high risk ACS?
Ideal duration is of DAPT is in you have to divide these patients into two groups: high bleeding risk group and non-high bleeding risk. Those people who are not high bleeding risk group, it is 12 months. Those people who are high bleeding risk, it is 6 months of DAPT. But with the Twilight trial, it has shown that 3 months of DAPT followed by only continuing ticagrelor also reduces bleeding. So in high bleeding risk group, you can use this strategy also.
All right. The next question is, would it be correct to switch high risk ACS patients from clopidogrel or prasugrel to ticagrelor?
There is a switch mechanism. If you are, you can switch, but if you want to switch, for example, if the patient has already on clopidogrel and you want to switch to ticagrelor, you have to give a loading dose of ticagrelor. And if you want to switch from ticagrelor to clopidogrel, you have to wait for 24-hour washout period. That is, after the last dose of ticagrelor, after 24 hours, you give the loading dose of 600 mg of clopidogrel. So that is the only difference. When you are switching from clopidogrel to prasugrel, you need not wait. You can directly, because both are drugs which act similarly. You need not wait for 24 hours. You can directly switch.
All right. And the last few questions is, as per the Pegasus trial, which is on ticagrelor 60 mg,
Hmm.
that should be continued post 1 year after
Yeah.
ticagrelor 90 mg for 1 year. So, what
Hmm.
is your opinion on this, and how long can we extend this DAPT? That is ticagrelor 60 mg along with aspirin.
That is a 3 year duration, but 3 year from the first year. But it is you have to be careful in the sense that is my view that you have to be little careful because the bleeding is little higher when you are using, and therefore don't use this strategy in high bleeding risk group. So in those patients who are HBR risk high, uh, you can continue either aspirin or clopidogrel, but you can use, of course, 60 mg BD of ticagrelor for 2 years after the first year.
All right. And the next question is the Themis trial. If you go to see, now there is USFD approval for ticagrelor 60 mg in primary prevention for ACS in moderate high risk patients. So, what is your take on this? Because recently there has been an approval given to ticagrelor 60 mg. So, would you be using this
Medical
in
therapy,
India?
you are talking about medical therapy, ACS medical therapy.
Yes, yes.
It can be used. It can be used. It can be used. And if you are keeping patient for some reason not undergoing stenting, and you are keeping the patient on medical therapy, you are worried about the patient being in high ischemic risk, then you can certainly use ticagrelor.
All right. And so the final question is, what is the role of rivaroxaban in high risk CAD with diabetes, hypertension, and CKD?
Yeah, there has been a recent trial, COMPASS trial, and before that, Triology ACS trial. All these trials have shown clearly that in certain subgroups of patients of stable ischemic heart disease, these are not stable ischemic heart disease, but these are chronic coronary artery disease, where after a few months after the ACS, you label them as stable CAD. In stable CAD also, there are certain subgroups like those patients who had previous myocardial infarction, those patients who have peripheral vascular disease, those patients who have, for example, diabetes. These are high-risk groups of patients. They have higher event rate, although they are called stable coronary artery disease. Not exactly correct to call them stable, but that's what we call them, stable coronary artery disease. You can give them rivaroxaban 2.5 mg BD along with aspirin to prevent ischemic events, and COMPASS trial has really shown very good results. Although you have to be careful again in patients with high bleeding risk.